All right, welcome back to Draws and Fades, episode 97, preview of the AT&T Byron Nelson at TPC Craig Ranch in McKinney, Texas, outside of Dallas. I'm your host, Owen Vrabel, joined by my co-host, Matthew Miller.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
And producer, Nick Boss.
What's going on, boys? Happy Victory Tuesday this week.
Victory Tuesday. Coming off the hiatus, Max Homa gets it done for us on Sunday at the Wells Fargo. Max Homa treated us well, and he's slowly but surely being like the biggest moneymaker for this podcast. I think we've collectively been on him for multiple wins of his. So shout out Max. That was awesome.
Second group win on Homa this year, right? We all had him at the Fortinet.
Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll see what happens next, like with the odds coming up, but we've been talking about it. They keep kind of still burying him in the odds list, despite the fact that he wins so much, and it happened again.
No respect.
Yeah. No respect. I mean, I did see a tweet, I think it was from Justin Ray, that he's now one of the youngest players to reach 4 wins without ever coming inside the top 10 at a major. So his major odds will still probably be pretty good in the top 20 markets, top 10 markets. And I'm sure his outright odds will still be pretty tasty as well. But I know he hasn't quite figured it out at the majors, but we'll take him at the Wells Fargo every time. That's for sure. But we'll get into a recap of that. The Wells Fargo, and then we are partnered up with Rotoballer in 2022, so make sure to win big with rotoballer.com's PGA Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate? Rotoballer's premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, our lineup optimizer, and so much more to help you win big. For limited time, get your PGA Premium Pass for 50% off using our promo code DNF10 for another 10% discount. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio, sign up today, and start rotoballing like a boss. Shout out some of our other Rotoballer guys. I know Joe Nicely and Spencer have definitely had tons of DFS success this year. And Spencer's the king of like mid-round matchup plays. Seems to always be hitting on those. So make sure to check those guys out. But huge week for the boys. I mean, Homa cashes beautiful tickets for us. I got him at 4,100. Matt got him at 48. Also hit a top 20 on Homa. Hit a top 20 on Cam Young. Top 30 on Denny and Ricky Fowler. Ricky
back.
Ricky.
Is he in the field for next week?
I don't know.
Probably not. They offered odds for him on FanDuel. Maybe that was just for like suckers. I don't know.
Well, that's actually a great question. I'm not sure if he is.
They released the list. I didn't go through the full list of names, so it is out there though. So
he also had one of the most impressive bogeys we've ever seen. He pulled out from like 130 in the fairway for bogey. So
Ricky is in the field next week. So
he is in the field. Love to see it. Well, whatever. I'm gonna get suckered into maybe a couple plays on Ricky, but it doesn't take much for him to turn it around. I mean, we've seen it with Speed. We've seen it with some of these guys that were elite status at one point. So maybe Ricky has figured it out. But
comeback's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I think it might have just started. We'll see. We also saw it somewhat to a degree with Jason Day last week. He was playing great until he wasn't. He had a 2-stroke lead heading into Saturday, and then played very, very poorly.
I think it was 2 or 3, whatever.
After Friday he was up 2, I believe.
Immediate eject.
Keegan Bradley obviously was Max Homa's biggest challenge on Sunday. Keegan ended up being in the lead after Saturday, playing very good golf. And that was kind of Saturday. A lot of guys went backwards, and the whole week was tough. So what did the winning score end up being? 8 under, 9 under?
8 or 9.
Yeah. So
I think it was 8. I think he was -8, and Fitz and a couple other guys were -6. Fitz and Keegan.
Cam Young too. Yeah.
So it was a tough week. There's kind of, I don't think it was to the degree we expected it, but we knew it wasn't going to be a birdie fest by any stretch of the imagination. And I think moving forward, Max Homa, difficult scoring conditions, has proven to be a worthwhile bet. And he was just very consistent on Sunday. Obviously, Keegan doubled the first par 5, immediately giving up his lead, which was fantastic. But also, when you're chasing and you kind of get the lead by the 3rd hole, now the script is flipped. So I was a little concerned about Max. Then now the pressure is kind of flipped to being on him to control the pace and end up holding out the lead. But he did it great. I mean, Keegan ended up birdieing, I think like the 6th or 7th hole with a long putt, and Max followed up with his birdie to maintain the lead. And then down the stretch, I mean, it kind of went back and forth a little bit there. There were some nerve-wracking moments, but I mean, absolute stones from Max.
Keegan killed himself on, I forget which hole, where like he was in the rough and he went for the green where he probably should have laid up and he went into the penalty area. And
yeah,
it was just so dumb. Like,
it's a fantastic spot.
Yeah, I mean, great for us, but that I think killed him. Well, it did kill him, but at the second he did it, it was like that was so stupid.
It was quite the back nine though. I didn't get to watch any, but I was listening. I was in the car on Sunday. But there was a couple like 2-hole swing or 2-stroke swing holes, like where it was just like, all right, we're safe. All right, no, we're not. Like, okay, now we're safe. Like, I mean, it was a little more interesting than I had hoped for Max, but he got it done for us.
Yeah, I will say he was like nails putting. Like,
a couple huge par putts in there.
A couple of like 8-10 footers for par that just center of the cup. The one hole, it was a par 3, and he missed the green to the left, and Keegan was probably like 5 feet away for birdie. And then Homa went up and down, made like a 10-footer for par, and then Keegan missed his birdie putt, and it ended up not costing him any shots. And there's like stuff like that kind of ultimately got him the victory.
Yeah, which I mean, it's impressive at this point. Like I said, 4 PGA Tour wins. He's how old is he? Like 20, 27 maybe? I mean, he's definitely not old. He's turned into a little bit of a veteran here, but I think he's kind of found his stride here, and I think if he is continuing to be valuable on was that 31?
31, yeah.
Wow. All right, so he's a little bit older than I thought, but I mean, I'm 30, so it's not like
come on. Some of us are 31, and we would like to not consider ourselves old. So
yeah. So
he's young over there. Look at that.
Spring chicken.
But yeah, he's certainly found his stride. So I moving forward, I think Homa is going to be a great bet at a lot of courses, and I think it was on part of my take, right, boss, where he kind of got into the fact where he kind of put a little bit too much pressure on himself as a younger golfer to think he had to change the way he played to compete on a PGA Tour. And he kind of has gone back to his roots and sticking to his strengths and playing the way he likes to play golf. And it's certainly good enough to win on a PGA Tour, as we've seen. So he's very talented, and he's a moneymaker for us. So thank you, Max. Beautiful week at the Wells Fargo, and we're looking to keep the momentum moving.
I think people kind of discount him a little bit too because of the social media aspect of him, where he likes to, kind of get in the mix and make fun of people's swings and throw some jokes out there. And I think people take him not as seriously on the golf course because of that, which if that's the case, I'm fine with it because we'll just keep betting him at great numbers and we'll keep cashing those tickets because he's performing. And as he said in the interview, he's gaining that confidence back and he's just sticking with what's working. And by all means, let's keep going, Max. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of surprising, too, because, I mean, typically the more liked players, I mean, whether it's via social media or just their presence on the course in general, typically they are more bet on than not. I mean, like Jordan Spieth's been a darling forever. I mean, granted, he's had major championship success, and maybe that's the next step, where he's not really in the public eye very often during the majors. I think admittedly so. I think this is the first year he made the cut at the Masters, so he's not usually very relevant on the weekends at these big events where you're getting the most eyeballs. So maybe that has something to do with his number. But I mean, in terms of the PGA, in terms of the golf Twitter community and the people that we interact with, I think everyone understands that Max Homa is a very good golfer. And I think he does kind of get overlooked a lot of the times.
I mean, just even looking at last week, we talked about it, like he was double the number of like Fitz and almost double Keegan Bradley. Like,
yeah, well,
way more
we shit on Keegan Bradley and took him first round leader, and that was his worst round by far. And then he almost fucks us in the end. So thank you for not doing that, Keegan. Keegan being Keegan was back exactly on that hole that you talked about, where he goes for the green, ends up taking a penalty stroke. So that's the Keegan we love, and that's why I usually bet him first round leader not to win a tournament. So, but yeah, so we're moving forward. Next week's the PGA, and we kind of didn't really go through a little preview we're getting into this week, but we are TPC Craig Ranch, typically an absolute birdie fest, which has, I think, led to some unsuspecting names having some success here. So we'll get into our strategy for what we're looking for this week and betting and then one and done. And I think it's a pretty strong field considering the PGA is next week, at least at the top of the board and really throughout. I mean, there are a lot of the elite players that are playing this week. And I think a lot of the things that you might not be able to quantify this week is stuff that people are going to try to wrap their heads around is what kind of motivation, some of these top players have, and, how motivated they're going to be to win the AT&T Byron Nelson, when in reality, they'd rather be peaking next week than, winning this week. But as we've seen with some other guys, Scotty Scheffler is a perfect example. If you're playing well, you can certainly win tournaments in bunches. So there are a lot of big names here, Matt, but we're at TPC Craig Ranch, like I said, Birdie Fest type scenario. So what are we working with this week? We're in Texas, a lot of Texas boys in the field. What do we got?
Yeah, par 72, around 7,400 yards, a little bit over. Last year was the first year it was held at TPC Craig Ranch, so we only have 1 year of course history to go off of. KH Lee won at -25. Last year there was a lot of rain leading up to it, so the course played a little bit softer than it's supposed to this year. I still don't anticipate it playing tough this year, but it might be slightly tougher than last year. I would still say the winner is going to be somewhere in the -20s. So you're still going to have to make a lot of birdies and go extremely low if you want to win. Off the tee, the fairways are a lot easier to hit than tour average. There's not really a whole lot of penalty to get in off the tee. It's going to be a lot of approach. Last year, there was a lot of approaches that came in from 200 plus. I don't know if it's because it's less soft this year, if there's going to be more run out off the tee, and maybe we'll get some from more of that 175 to 200 range, but I still think we're looking at fairly long approaches, 175 to 200. Yep. 200 plus would be the two categories that I'd be zoning in on there. And then bentgrass greens, like any tournament that you win with an extremely low score, it's going to be a lot on approach, putting yourself in position to make birdies, and then making enough birdies to win. So putting on bent, I'm going to look at 2. Par 5 scoring, you're going to have to take advantage of the par 5s if you want to go low, and kind of like opportunities gained, stats like that. Stuff I wouldn't focus on as much is like around the green, because if you're not hitting greens, you're not going to win this week. And then off the tee, I wouldn't look at accuracy because the fairways are easier to hit, as I mentioned. And so it's weird because we've only had 1 year here. So from the description of the course and everything that kind of we've been talking about, it seems like distance would matter. KH Lee won last year. He's not a long hitter, so it seemed like distance didn't matter. But I still think it's advantageous, just based on everything we're saying. It allows you to take advantage of the par 5s better. It'll give you some shorter approaches in. It just kind of seems always beneficial, especially when you don't have to put an emphasis on accuracy. So if I was going to look at anything off the tee, I would favor distance over accuracy this week, but I'm also not going to weigh too heavily in on that. I'm going to look mostly at approach and putting. I don't know if you had anything else to add.
No, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think this is the classic Birdie Fest week where you're going to need to be locked in with your irons and need to make putts with the best of them. So obviously, the closer you get into the hole proximity-wise from those long irons, I think the better opportunities you're going to have. So, yeah, I've locked in on some birdie or better gain stats, opportunities gained, the long irons, putting on bent, and as always, approach and ball striking numbers, and kind of looking more so, as you said, we've only been at TPC Craig Ranch once, so I am looking at guys that have played well recently and trying to, catch some good form going into an easier type course. And maybe it won't be as easy as it was last year. I know it was softer last year, so at anytime KH Lee is shooting 25 under, that things were quite they were out there for the taking out there. So, and then that's no offense to KH Lee, but and it is at TPC Craig Ranch, which is a newer course, but it's been in the Dallas area for quite some time. So it is, Texas golf. And I think some guys are comfortable playing out there. We do have a bunch of Texas natives in the field this week, but yeah, approach game for me is going to be key. And as little as I like to take into an account putting, because a lot of the times the best ball strikers and even some of the guys that pop data-wise for ball striking and approach play, even the guys further down the odds list don't necessarily always combine that with good putting. I've taken a look at it, but I'm also going to spin zone my way into guys that maybe don't putt particularly well, just striking the shit out of the ball and leaving themselves inside 10 feet for birdie more often than not, which would lead to, I think, a lot of success here. So, like I said, a lot of good players are here. I don't know if the Byron Nelson is a appealing tournament for these guys, or I mean, I do know that some players do like to play the week before the major. We've talked about that with Brooks before, but this week is Scotty Scheffler returning back to the PGA Tour. He is our favorite on FanDuel currently at plus 950, which is actually a better number than you would get on DraftKings. He's at plus 700. So he's our favorite this week. Justin Thomas is at 13, Jordan Spieth at 17, and then DJ and Sam Burns at 19 with Xander and Will Zalatoris at 21. And that's relatively uniform in comparison to DraftKings. Those guys are all under 22 on both books. So we'll start off there, Matt. It is the week before a major. Motivation-wise, it's going to be tough to read these guys. I think they're all gearing up for next week. But did any of these guys kind of, get you going this week and make you get on anyone in the outright market?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's tough to gauge, motivation. I'm going to take Sam Burns, though. 19 right now on FanDuel. He's kind of a guy who always seems to play well in these like birdie fest type events because he makes birdies in bunches. And he's just one of those guys that certainly can take advantage of the easy courses. And, it's almost like you don't have, like, I don't see a way where he doesn't play well this week. I think he's going to be in the mix. And he's also one of the guys up top where I think that he would have more motivation than, say, a Dustin Johnson or Justin Thomas or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to take a shot on Burns. I like him. I like his fit for the course, and I'm going to be on him this week.
All right. I mean, I love it. Obviously, I'm a big Sam Burns guy, and I've been preaching that it's going to be the year of Sam Burns this year. I'm in a pickle because I get it. He's been playing really good golf, and I think he's obviously played well here last year. Under 20-1 is kind of tough. And I'm in this predicament where I have a very large ticket on him for next week at the PGA, and I don't know whether to jump on board and take him this week as well, in the fact where if he does win this week, I think it is going to be tough for him to win back-to-back weeks, as it really is with anyone. But I'm not sure I'm going to get there. I think he's a great play this week, and I think if there was someone up there, he would be the guy I would look towards. I think obviously Scheffler's playing great golf. I think he's kind of in an unbettable range down at under 10-1. And then Justin Thomas continues to be an absolute freak with his iron play and approach play. And overall, tee to green numbers are spectacular, and you would think he would have won more recently than he has, but he hasn't. So I'm a little bit scared of him this week, but
it's interesting with him because is he going to make enough putts to win this event? Because
I don't know. I mean,
I looked at it, and if you take out the Century Tournament of Champions, which is the biggest joke tournament on tour, Cam Smith won at minus 34 this year. Justin Thomas hasn't got to minus 20 in a tournament in 19 months. Which I think there's something to be said about that. I know he's probably being more selective with his tournament play, now that he's in elite status than maybe when he was younger in his career and he played a lot more events. But there's something to say about maybe he's just not making enough putts to win some of these events. Not to say he can't win, but I think it's tough to take him that high up the board, given that and the fact that he hasn't won in 13 months.
Yeah, no, I know. And but I mean, we said this before the PGA, I think. Or not before the players, and even before the Masters. I think he is due for a nice win, and maybe it will be a surprising win where it won't be a big event. It'll be the AT&T Byron Nelson, and somehow he goes out and shoots 23 under this week and wins. Yeah. But at 13-1, it's kind of not really too appealing for me this week, even though I really do think he plays well. Because, that is an interesting stat, and I do think what you mentioned is probably true, where he's not playing as many of the easier events as he typically did. But I wasn't too intrigued with really anyone. I guess you could use the Spieth and Scheffler narrative, Texas guys. And Spieth obviously has looked very good this year, not even very good. I mean, he obviously won recently, and that's kind of skewed that a little bit to him now being under 20-1 again. And DJ, I never really have a good feeling on him on a non-major week in terms of what he's going to end up doing. And it is interesting. The last time we saw Spieth, it was when he won. So I don't know if he's going to win back-to-back events either. So I like your Burns play. I think Zalatoris will be super popular this week. But similar to JT, I don't know if he's going to win his first event on an event like this where you are going to have to make a bunch of birdies and make a bunch of putts. I kind of like him better at the tougher courses. But he is a long iron extraordinaire, so I think he'll be – if he's hitting the ball well, he's going to be giving himself more looks than others. But it kind of depends how you want to look at it with Zalatoris. So I think that's kind of a tough number for him too. So if there's anyone, I would look at Burns. But as of now, I've kind of – neglected the top of the board, and I'm going to be moving down further. Surprised just quickly to see Xander at the number he's at. I mean, I guess he won the Zurich with Cantlay and looked pretty good, but I mean, I don't know if it's worth that number. Again, when's the last time he's won a regular event that wasn't a team play event with Patrick Cantlay playing like that? So it's been forever. So
I mean, his only PGA Tour win in a full field event
was the Greenbrier, right?
The Greenbrier. Like, that's an atrocious resume. Now I get that he's obviously had a ton of like top 5 finishes in majors and been close in other tournaments too, but that's not enough. I don't know.
And the Greenbrier
we've been talking about this for a while. His resume does not add up to his odds.
No, the Greenbrier was 5 years ago. It was 2017. It's insane. So yeah, that's unbettable. So let's get on to some juicier numbers here. And I'm thankful for those guys being here this week because I do think they give some pretty good value in the mid tier, and that's where we hit on Homa last week. So we got Brooks Koepka at 3,100, Hideki as well, and then Joaquin Niemann at 34, Taylor Gooch at 41, and then a slew of guys between 46 and 50, Cameron Champ, Adam Hadwin, Adam Scott, Brian Harmon, Leishman, Aaron Wise, Johnny Vegas, Jason Day, Jason Kokrak, and Maverick McNeely. And then we're over 50-1. And that again, that's on FanDuel. So maybe some discrepancies there. I'm seeing a little bit different numbers, especially in this mid-tier between those two books in particular, DraftKings and FanDuel. So I'll open the floor, Matt, again to you. Although I guess you just took Burns. So I'll tell you guys my first play of the week is going to be Joaquin Niemann at 3,400 on FanDuel.
I feel like we're like rotating guys here. I'm taking Burns. You're taking Niemann.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising. Niemann has been pretty consistent. I mean, obviously he won the Genesis at Riviera and looked fantastic, and then didn't play well at the Honda, and then kind of backed it up with 3 solid performances. 22nd at the Players, 35th at the Masters, 12th at RBC Heritage. And it's crazy the transformation he's kind of gone through. I mean, he's gained strokes around the green in 8 of the last events that have statistics on him. And it was extremely shocking to me to take a look at that. And also he's gained over 2 strokes putting in 3 of his last 10 as well, which again is not a strength of his. So
I've been telling you, the short game's coming around.
What's up?
I've been telling you, the short game's coming around.
Short game's coming around. Everything's coming around. I mean, obviously the win was phenomenal, but yeah, I mean, he's turning into a very well-rounded player. We always knew he had, the ball striking capabilities. He's long off the tee, which I think you talked about it in the beginning, may not be a huge advantage here, but the fairways are wide open. I think he can kind of just grip it and rip it, and his long irons can be spectacular as well. So I like Niemann at that number, and I think, granted, he's going to give himself plenty of birdie chances as well. I mean, he's 3rd in birdies better gained over his last 24 rounds, and he plays well on the easier courses. He's 6th in this field strokes gained total on easier courses over his last 50 rounds. So I like Niemann a lot this week. I am kind of surprised we've kind of done a flip-flop here between Niemann and Burns, but I'm excited for Niemann this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we flip-flopped for the same motive. I'm definitely going to be on Niemann next week, so I'm secretly hoping for him to not play that well to get as good a number as possible. But yeah, I mean, now I'm not going to be rooting against him because you have him. But that was kind of my logic. I'm hoping that he just kind of,
Yeah, but it's interesting because I talked about it. The logic, you could go both ways on it. If you're going to take him next week, it kind of doesn't feel too bad to get a pick in on him this week as well as a little safety net. Like if he does win, you're going to want to be on that win before, inevitably it's going to be tough to win back to back. So
right, yeah.
But yeah, Neiman, my first play, I thought it was a good number. I think he's clearly shown that when he's on, he's elite. And I think in the Birdie Fest type events, he could definitely win. So I like Neiman a lot this week.
It is funny too, like talking about just kind of value, not to get too much into it, but I mean, he's significantly further like down the board than, Xander, Zalatoris, and I guess he's not of their caliber, but I mean, he did just win Riviera. He's been pretty consistent. Like, I feel like that's a pretty good number on him.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say the same even for Brooks and Hideki at 31. I know Hideki's been battling some injuries, and Brooks hasn't won in quite a while, but it's not even that long. But he's only won once in a significant span at this point. But he's also battled injuries too. But for them both to be 10 points lower than Xander still feels wrong. And even Zalatoris, I mean, Zalatoris has been great this year too, but he hasn't closed the door on anything. So when we're looking at the outright market, I mean, you're looking for guys that actually win tournaments. And Neiman's kind of proven himself that he can definitely do it. Obviously, Zalatoris hasn't yet. I think he will, but.
And Neiman's so young too. Like, I feel like because he got on tour, I feel like he's almost a little bit more disrespected than he should be because he came on tour so early. Like, he was playing in events when he was like 18, 19. Like, he's still only like 24 years old.
Yep.
He's a real young guy. If he had just come out of college, it would be like his second year on tour. People would be fawning over him.
For sure. And I think people still I think people still do. He's just kind of fallen below, I guess, this group of young players where Hovland, Morikawa, and now even Burns and Scheffler, obviously, I think they get more of the hype. Deservedly so, but Neiman's a step below them, but not by much. So I like him in this mid-range, which over 30-1. So that's where I decided to start my card. And we'll see where else I go from there. I think there's definitely some value in the 30 to 100 range. So who's next up on your board, Matt?
I am going to take Jason Kokrak. Not a guy I typically take. I don't even know the last time I've taken him, if ever, really. But it feels like a pretty good fit for him this week. He is 11th off the tee and 29th in approach last 36 rounds in the field. Coming off a 35th at the Heritage and 14th at the Masters. He's also first in his last 36 rounds in strokes gained putting on bent grass.
Yeah.
And I mean, 50-1, we're talking about a guy who's won like 3 times in the last 2.5 years. So the win equity is there. I mean, I don't love Kokrak. I don't really love to take him, but it kind of makes a whole lot of sense. And I feel like you're getting some value on it. This is kind of the type of event where he's going to go out and win. So I like him this week. I think he's long. I know that maybe that won't help that much, but maybe it will help. We've only had 1 year of really stats to back up that distance isn't a huge factor. So maybe it will be an advantage. And he can do that too. So I'm going to take him this week.
I like it. Actually, I mean, we talked before the show, and I think I may be jumping on board with you on Kokrak here. And also, you didn't get into this too much, but strokes gained playing in Texas, pretty good. Last time he won, Houston Open. Obviously, he has a top 5 finish at the Byron Nelson. Obviously, it wasn't at DPC Craig Ranch. It was 5 years ago. He finished 4th and played very well. So, he's going to be long off the tee. And we talked about it's going to be approach play and putter. And if he's given himself closer irons than the rest of the field with the long drives, I think, again, I'm not necessarily putting a ton of stock in it, but I do think that driving distance will certainly help in giving you shorter approaches than the rest of the field. And I think, that always leads to, not always, but I think proximity-wise, that usually leads to better success. So I like the Kokrak play. I do like the Kokrak play. And I have some room on my card, so I think I'm going to add Jason Kokrak to it for a little chance
we could be looking at another winner around this 50-1 range back-to-back week.
I mean, back-to-back team plays. I mean, we got to have at least one, so I'm not sure if we're going to have anyone else, but we got to have at least one. So I'll jump on board with Kokrak here. Another guy I'm taking this week who I think is going to be pretty popular is Taylor Gooch. He is at 41-1 currently on FanDuel. And I I think he is actually he goes under the radar a bit too. I know people do really like to play him, especially in the golf Twitter echo chamber that we're in. I think people do really like Taylor Gooch's game. But obviously, he's won in the past 6 months back at the RSM. And since then, he's played, pretty consistent golf. He has a few missed cuts, but other than that, he's consistently inside the top 20. And the type of play I think you're looking for this week, I think he's going to be able to give it to you. He's inside the top 30 in approach in his last 24 rounds. He also plays well on these easier courses. He's 7th over his last 50 rounds in strokes gained total on easier courses. Opportunities gained, he's 2nd in this field in his last 24 rounds. And I'm kind of buying this spot on Gooch where, similar to your take on Burns and maybe Zalatoris, I think these younger guys, and even Neiman to a degree, I think they're definitely looking forward to the PGA, but I think anytime they can look at trying to add a win to their resume, they're going to be looking to be motivated to do that. So I do like Gooch this week. I think his irons will come into play well. And I like him. I don't like him nearly as much as Sam Burns, but I think their games are relatively similar. And maybe a little good juju with his teammate Max Homa from the Zurich winning last week. So maybe they go back to back. So I like Taylor Gooch this week. 41 on FanDuel, and I think you can get him maybe in the mid 40s on DraftKings at 45. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that play. I thought about him. I'm gonna be kind of pissed I'm happy for you, but I'm gonna be pissed I didn't take him if he wins because I thought about him and I considered it. And I was just an idiot and put in a bunch of longer bets right away, and now I don't have room for him. So it's just kind of the way it crumbled this week. But I do think it's a good play.
All right. Yeah, and then just some other names I think are interesting this week. Adam Scott has really transformed his putting game. I mean, I don't know exactly if there's any direct science behind it, but Scott has definitely putted better, and I think his approach play can be as elite as the best of them. So I think he could be someone to take a look at this week. He modeled that well for me. And Adam Hadwin modeled out extremely well for me this week, which is always – I mean, it's a little bit scary, but at the same time, he's just played really good golf. So I think Hadwin, if he was at a 65, 70 number, let's say, I think I'd be more inclined to take him. But it's hard to not take a look at what he's done since February. I mean, 16th at Pebble Beach, 26th at the Waste Management, then 9th at the Players, 7th at the Valspar, 4th at the Valero, and then even 26th most recently at the RBC Heritage. So he's played really good golf. His approach play has been great. His around the green game has been great. So I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Hadwin puts another good performance in this week. But other than that, I think I'm going to stick with Kokrak and Gooch in this mid-tier and move forward from there. Anyone else notable that you thought about before we get into 55 and above?
No, I had a guy at 55 that I considered and I didn't end up taking.
All right. So we got Noren, Siwoo Kim, Seamus Power, Bubba Watson all at 55 on FanDuel, and then a slew of guys between 65 and 75, which is Tommy Fleetwood, Davis Riley, Lonzo Griffin, Sebastian Munoz, Kurt Kitayama, Kevin Kisner, Seb Straka, Matt Kuchar, Keith Mitchell. And then we're 85 and above into the bombs section of the board. So before we get to the bombs, Matt, anyone in this, late mid-tier that you like as an outright play?
Yeah, I thought about Alex Noren. Not going to take him, but I do think that he could play pretty well this week. I decided to take Keith Mitchell at 75-1. It just was too high of a number considering what I've been taking him at recently and the fact that I don't think there's too much motivation toward the top of the board, with the elite players up there like Justin Thomas, DJ. He came 26th here last year, last 24 rounds, 2nd strokes gained total on par 5s, 6th in the field, approached 200 plus, and 19th birdie or better gain. So there's enough there for me at that number, and considering the fact that I've been on him, I'm certainly not going to miss out on the win when it happens. So 75, I mean, sign me up all day.
All right, Keith Mitchell. I don't know if you're going to go back to him after his pretty poor performance last week, but
yeah, that's like the classic, like when everyone likes a guy and then they put up a dud and everyone's off him. Like I feel like that's when they play well.
Yeah, was he popular last week? I guess relatively popular.
I think he was relatively popular. I think people are starting to like join on the bandwagon, but They might all be off after that performance.
Well, if he plays poorly again, they'll definitely be off, and then you can get some even better numbers on him. So I don't hate that at all. It's funny you mentioned Noren. I think I guess he's just played well enough to put himself in this 55 range. He seems like he should be towards the 80s, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, we were getting him at deeper like not that long ago.
But he's played good golf. He hasn't missed a cut since the Amex, and he's 3 top 12 finishes, a top 5 finish. So I think Noren could be a decent play in DFS and other scenarios, but I'm not going to take him outright. I'm going to go to a guy who I think is peaking at the right time here, Tommy Fleetwood. He's played 7 times in 2022, 1 missed cut, and then all 22 top 22 or better finishes. He finished 22nd at the Players, then since then 16th at the Valspar, 14th at the Masters, which I think was pretty surprising for a lot of people, and then most recently 10th at the RBC. And I just think peak Tommy Fleetwood, what his game could be, I think is worth a take at 65 to 1. I think he's kind of just floated into this range from, not having a winner on the PGA Tour, and maybe he's kind of just gone under the radar now from not having played really good golf. I mean, he doesn't have a top 5 finish going back on the PGA Tour all the way to the Honda in 2020. And I think in 2019, 2018 was kind of where he was playing a lot better golf. They had a stretch of golf in 2018 that was phenomenal, where he finished, top 10 at the Players, U.S. Open, and the Open Championship, as well as playing very well at the Tour Championship and the BMW that year. So maybe if we're getting back to Tommy of old, where he's going to be elite with his irons, and I think, statistically, he's not really going to line up great yet. His puttering on bent isn't spectacular. He's a little bit he's average, better than average from proximity of over 175. But I just think that the value is pretty strong with Tommy, and I'm going to take the current form and try to ride that into a victory here with Fleetwood. So 65 to 1 on FanDuel, a pretty good number considering he's 40, I believe, on DraftKings. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I thought about him. He is playing really well lately.
Yeah.
I feel like I picture him more on like tougher courses, like contending, but that might not be like an accurate statement. I just think of him at like the U.S. Open and like.
Well, because he did have that run in 2018, 2019, where he's playing really good at the majors and the Players. So I think there's something to that. But most recently played well at RBC Heritage and at the Valspar. So I think he's certainly capable of making a bunch of birdies. And we'll see.
I think that's a good number. I mean, especially considering some of the guys below. Like, I don't think that he should be below Jonathan Vegas and Aaron Wise on the odds list, that's for sure.
Yeah, although Aaron Wise has actually played really good golf too. And Johnny Vegas, I mean, I'm surprised to see him at 50, and he just had a wrist injury of some sort, and I think he had surgery
or something.
Yeah, and he played well last week. Yeah. So but yeah, I agree. I think Tommy's at a pretty good number at 65, at least on FanDuel. So that's where I'm going in this range, and then I'm in the bomb section after that. So
I am too. Yeah.
All right, bombs away. Let's see if we lock any plays in together. Although, see what happens. What do you got?
Matthew Wolff.
All right. I'm going to do it too.
I love it. Yeah. 120 to 1 here on FanDuel. Last week, I was pretty impressed by him. He hadn't played in a while. He looked lost before that. He did kind of give that quote that he was just changed his perspective on things and said that he wasn't there to win. He was just trying to have fun, and he realized how much his poor attitude was not only hurting him, but all the guys he was playing with. And I was really impressed. He gained 1.9 strokes on approach, gained 2 strokes putting, was even 0 off the tee. But this week off the tee is a lot easier than last week, where it was like tight tree line fairway. Like,
this is a perfect setup for Matt Wolff.
The fact that like he didn't lose strokes off the tee last week is an amazing sign, because he was like losing balls left and right before that. And then this was a course where like if you're not straight, there's trouble everywhere. And he did. We know that he can win events. He's won before, and he's won Birdie Fest before. His wins at 3M was like minus 22 or 23 or something. So yeah, I mean, I really like him this week. And it's just at that number, he has the ability to do it. which is more than you could say about most guys down here.
No, yeah, this is a perfect setup for Matt Wolff with his new mentality on life. Everything is setting up for him to continue to play well, especially at a course like this where he doesn't have to worry about hitting an absolute like hook left. I mean, granted, I've seen him be completely long and gone way into the rough on courses. But in theory, I think he can kind of grip it and rip it here off the tee and then worry about the rest of his game, which, you know, maybe it's just a small sample size. I mean, it is a small sample size. It was 1 week, and he only shot under par once. It was on Thursday, but it was a tough event, and he didn't blow up. I mean, I think that's something to be said. He finished T25 and, you know, played relatively strong down the stretch. In considering his run, you know, in 2022 prior, had 4 missed cuts and a 61st and a 64th. So, yeah, I think, again, Matt Wolff can be super popular. We've seen him float from the 20s in the odds on the odds board all the way into the hundreds. So when he's in the hundreds, you got to hope that you're catching him before he hits another peak and, you know, then before he gets back into one of his valleys, which will be inevitable. And I think that'll probably be something that's consistent throughout Matt Wolff's career with the way that he approaches his golf swing. I mean, it's a very volatile swing, I think, in my opinion. And he's even his, you know, the little tick he has to start his swing. I don't know, you know, how reliable that can be over time. And I think maybe he'll get rid of that at some point. But yeah, I think this could be trending in the right direction for Matt Wolff and Birdie Fest. He's surprisingly, as bad as he's played, I mean, granted, this is over a longer sample size. Over on the strokes gained total on easier courses, he's 11th. So all the other statistics are still really bad, even though he played well last week. I mean, his ball striking and approach numbers are horrific over his last 24, 36 rounds. But again, when he's playing well, his long irons are good. So I like that play with Matt Wolff as well.
Perfect.
All right, so we got two plays we're on board with together. I like that a lot. I'm having trouble not going back to Luke List. So it's a little bit of a problem. But my original take was that he might go on somewhat of a Jason Kokrak run. And since I'm taking Jason Kokrak this week, I might as well add Luke List as well. I know we mentioned how it's going to be an approach and putting week, and that doesn't set up well for Luke in terms of the putting, but with the approach play, it obviously sets up very well. He's 4th in ball striking, 10th in strokes gained approach, 4th in opportunities gained over his last 24 rounds. He's also well above average on strokes gained total on easier courses. His long irons are above average as well. He's inside the top 40 in both of those. And then it's just the putting. So that's something that you're always going to have to worry about with Luke. But as we saw at the Farmers, I mean, when he does put together a putting week, he's going to be in the mix. So I will say since the Farmers, he has not gained strokes putting since. But he did gain 3. What? He's due. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, throughout his career, he does pop off with weeks where he putts well. Even going back to last year at the Wells Fargo, the week before, you know, he gained 2.5 strokes and finished 6th. And basically, if he's baseline putting, I mean, and his approach play is as elite as it can be, he's going to be in the mix. So I got a little bit excited about him last week. Completely different type of setup, obviously, more of a grind it out and, you know, make your pars. But through Friday, he was very much in the mix. I think he was 6 under through 2 rounds and got a little bit excited about him. But I'm going to say that was a good finish overall for Luke last week, finishing 31st, considering he had come off 2 missed cuts and hasn't played well since his win back in January. So I think maybe he's kind of figured it out again, or I'm going to take him at 90 to 1. Might be able to get 100 somewhere. So
yeah, I don't hate that at all. I mean, I feel like that's a guy.
Actually, wow, yeah, 130 on DraftKings. Yep, sign me up.
Yeah, that's a good number. I like that play.
I could not do it. That was yeah.
It makes total sense. I like it. Are we just firing away down here?
Yeah, fire away. I mean, I really only have one potential outright play left, and it's really a long shot bomb, and I think you might be mentioning him as well, so I'll let you run the floor with it.
Okay, I have 2 more guys.
Oh, wow. All right, I was expecting 2 more.
Yeah, 190. I'm going to go back to my guy Smo.
Okay.
Motherman. Yeah. I actually kind of like how he sets up this week. First of all, he's Texas guy, resides in Dallas, went to SMU, which is right around this Dallas area. Very familiar with playing golf down here, but first in the field last 24 rounds, approached 200 plus, 11th, 175 to 200, which sets up pretty well for the profile we described earlier. He hasn't lost strokes on approach since January. Putting is up and down, but he did gain 2 strokes last week, which was on bent as well. Really, he sucks horribly around the green, but like we touched on, that shouldn't matter this week because he's not going to be scrambling around, at least I hope not, in a birdie fest like this. So 190, I feel like the irons have been too good to pass up on that for a guy who's, resides in the area. I'm going to take a shot at him.
All right. Yeah, you're certainly riding the Smo bandwagon at this point, so I can appreciate that. Yeah, and then rattle off your last one as well.
Doc Redman, 240. Not much of a surprise. Are you on board?
Yeah, I'm on board with Doc. Why not?
We've been taking him at much worse numbers than that.
And he was ninth here last year.
So. Yeah, ninth here last year. He's 27th in approach still, last 24 rounds, 40th putting. Actually, it's funny, though, because the 2 areas that he struggles are off the tee and around the green, which theoretically should be the least important this week. Around the green definitely shouldn't be important this week, and I think you can kind of get away with not great off the tee game. So kind of seems to set up a little bit better for Doc than some of the other courses. He's also 27th in strokes gained total on par 5s last 24 rounds. So I'm going back to Doc. That number is way too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. I mean, we've talked about Doc a ton recently, and I think he has obviously shown some signs of life. Played well at the Zurich, which was the team event, but I thought he played well there. And then has kind of fluttered up and down. Played well with the Players. Nothing spectacular, I guess you would say. Since, but at 200 to 1, I think he's what is he 240 right now?
240, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll take a shot at that with you.
I love it.
I like that. Also, I will say my top 20 plays are probably going to be a combination of some of the guys I have taken already, but I just have to ride this bandwagon until something good happens. So I'm just going to mention Henrik Norlander again very briefly. 550 to 1, insane. He definitely won't win. That's a fact. But you're going to get some pretty good numbers on him finishing position wise. And I saw a nice little tidbit from our guy, the model maniac Byron, another Rotoballer contributor. He called it the bent gents. And Norlander's on the list. He likes to putt on bent in comparison to how he likes to putt on other surfaces. But I'll say, he's 128th baseline putting. Last 24, he's 144th in this field. But on bent in his last 50, he's 82nd. So it's a nice little jump up. I mean, he's going to be a shitty putter for sure, but he's a nice long iron player, and I think he will be able to eliminate strokes, hopefully losing off the tee with the wide fairways here. And then, his short game hopefully doesn't come into much of play as it would on other courses. So I'm going to take Henrik here for a top 20. It should be a nice, juicy top 20 on Henrik. Although, you know what? Depending on the odds, I'll probably end up going top 30 to play it a little safer. He's only played this event twice, and he's made the cut both times. So that's pretty much only good things you can say about Henrik, especially at a time like this where he's missed, there was a stretch there where he missed 7 straight cuts. And but he did make the cut last week as well. And shockingly, actually, gained 4.5 strokes around the green and lost strokes everywhere else. So, but I expect him to get back to his baseline on approach, which is gaining typically every week on the PGA Tour, even though remarkably he ends up missing the cut even in weeks where he is gaining strokes on approach. So that's my last thought there. Is there anyone else you were looking at top 20 wise just to throw out there as a mention?
I'm probably just going to stick with a combination of the guys on the card. Some sort of combination of them for finishing positions as well. I will say, is Harry Higgs is down there at like 300 something to 1? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Because he's another guy from the area. Played college golf at SMU.
He's 430 to 1, actually.
430 to 1, yeah. So maybe a top 30 or something on him. He's not been good lately, but maybe, local to where he played his college golf. He gets
I
it
can
back.
fuck with that. I definitely can fuck with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right. I guess I'll just throw out some guys that did model out well for me that I didn't mention. Kurt Kitayama. He's obviously been playing really good golf. If you think his trending is going to continue, I mean, going back to the Honda in February, finished third, 28th at Puerto Rico, a couple missed cuts, and then second in Mexico, 15th last week at the Wells Fargo. So he's continued to play well. His odds have obviously shown that he's been playing well. I think he's at 75 or around there on most books. Random ass name that popped up for me, who I used to take a ton of back when we first started Draws and Fades. A little bit of an older gentleman, Vaughn Taylor. He's popped up this week. I think plays pretty consistently well on the easier courses. His proximity numbers from over 175 are surprisingly good. Gives himself a lot of opportunities. Decent bent grass putter. If you're looking for some diversification, I think Vaughn Taylor could be a decent play. And other than that, some guys that have played relatively good recently, I think Lonto Griffin, who I also used to take a ton of. Obviously, he's trending in the right direction as well. 15th at the Mexico Open and 6th last week at Wells Fargo. And Tom Hoagie, I mean, if it's going to be an approach type event, Tom Hoagie could be worth a look. He's obviously shown us that he can play very well at courses where approach is going to be key. He's consistently been gaining strokes on approach. His putter can be a massacre at points, but he won when he putted well at Pebble Beach. So, and if you're looking for any type of correlation, our boy Luke at Luke Sweated Out did make the correlation. This event is also sponsored by AT&T. Pebble Beach sponsored by AT&T. Could be something there. So if you're looking for any type of spin zone for Tom Hoagie, that could be a good one. But other than that, I think I'm pretty locked in with what I got. Like you mentioned on Neiman, I'm going to be upset if Sam Burns wins this week. So I may hedge my bets there with a one and done selection on Burns. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So just to recap and bring Boss back in real quick. Boss, any other thoughts on the board or anyone else you're taking?
Not really. I got some kind of limited thoughts this week. Just board didn't thrill me. PGA next week. No need to blow all the Max Homa winnings in one spot, as tempting as it may be.
It's actually not super tempting, but
it's actually really not. It usually is, but surprisingly, it's not this week. Next week it might be though, so that's why I'm gonna hold some bullets there. But I thought about Zalatoris. The number isn't great, and I think he's going to be super popular. And even though that shouldn't have any correlation on my decision making or his ability to win, it does.
In your brain, at least.
In my brain, it does. So I think I'm going to start with Neiman. Hoping to get a better number than what is available to me on the options that I have. But I think he's going to play well this week. Around the green doesn't seem to be super important, so that kind of being his weakness makes me have a lot of confidence in him.
Well, to jump on that real quick while you're mentioning Neiman, I thought I might have mentioned it, but he's gained strokes gained around the green in like 7 or 8 straight events. So
yeah, Neiman is like a little bit flying under the radar with his short game now.
It's completely well-rounded.
Interesting. I might have to recalibrate my brain there because my correlation is that short game is a big time problem. So
I'm going to be on Neiman next week. Full disclosure.
There you go, folks. There's a nice little PGA preview for you there.
We will be on opposite players next week. I have taken on Sam Burns, put it in after he won, not the Valspar.
No, way before that. You had it early.
No, I know. I've had it in since October. So
that was the Sanderson or whatever he got.
Yeah,
it was the Sanderson. Yeah, I put it in after the Sanderson. $100 on 90 to 1. So.
Great call by you there, sir. Great value. Love to see that.
So you got Neiman. Who else?
I got Neiman. I think I'm going to go back to the Noren well. He kind of models out well. Off the tee doesn't matter. Should putt well this week. I'm interested in Mav McNeely. He's at a decent number. He's had a decent season, so his number's kind of been untouchable in my opinion at most spots. But with top end guys here back at the 50s, I think that's okay. And similar to Noren, he should putt well. And Luke List kind of appealed to me, although talking about putting well, then you throw Luke List's name in there. That kind of doesn't jive. But, he's had a great season and should get hot from approach. So hopefully he just sticks it close enough where the putting really doesn't matter. But limited thoughts. So,
all right. Lovely. All right. Well, it was a big week for us last week and one and done. I've moved back inside the top 100, 75th currently. Matt, back-to-back one and done winners, goes from the mid 3,000s to inside the top 1,000. And so you're going to be close to the money at this point, right?
Yeah, I need to move a little bit further up. I forget how many guys get paid out.
I think it's maybe top 500.
Yeah, I was going to say 500. So I'm getting it. Yeah. Yeah, the last 2 weeks have been a huge jump. So I kind of feel like I got a little bit of a hot streak going here.
And shout out Boss, now outside of the 4K range, inside 4K.
Well inside 4K. Well inside
4K. And we actually just passed the halfway point. We've 16 events have been played in the one and done season, 15 events to go. So, I mean, I'm probably getting excited for nothing, but I'm less than $1 million away from like the big prize pools under, inside the top 25. So,
who knows? Boss could be like the Rich Strike of the one and done and just come from the back of the pack, weave through everybody and win.
So you're saying there's a chance.
So that being said, who are you guys looking at in one and done this week?
I'm going to take Sam Burns.
All right.
I've had him sitting there. I don't really anticipate him using him for really anything more than this. I don't think I'm going to take him in a major. So seems like a pretty good spot for him. I think he should play pretty well.
Okay. Boss?
I kind of like that's the Sam Burns shout. I think the logic lines up. It's strong there. I've been thinking about JT though. I mean, I know that might be seem a bit aggressive for this tournament this week, but I don't think I'm going to use him at a major. I was looking ahead. I don't necessarily have a spot that I'm earmarking him for. I'm sure there's plenty of spots that he could fit, but there isn't one that like sticks out to me. And I just think he's going to go well this week. Off the tee doesn't really matter. It can get scorching hot with his irons. The putting's been a little better. So that's where I'm at right now.
All right. Well, you got nothing to lose going to JT.
Absolutely nothing to lose. So
I think people will be on the thought process of maybe saving some of the top end guys.
Mm-hmm.
I'm between Burns and Neiman, which I think I like the thought process on using one of them this week because I probably won't use them at the majors. Again, there are 15 events left, so one of them is a playoff event and 3 majors. There's still 15 events left, so there'll be other spots to use them potentially, but this feels like a pretty good spot. Obviously, Burns has played well here, good form. Neiman, great form. Both should play well this week, so that's where I'm in between those two guys. And potentially, if I were looking to make a little bit bolder of a play, I would consider Fleetwood, but that probably would be dumb, and I'm trying to not be dumb this year and I want to do stuff.
So far, you've been very smart. So
yeah. So, all right. Well, that'll do it. I mean, I guess we'll recap our cards real quick, Matt. I'm taking Neiman, Gooch, Fleetwood, and then jumping on Kokrak with you as well. And then Luke List, Matt Wolf, and Doc Redman.
Love it. I have Burns, Kokrak, Killer Keith, Matt Wolf, Smo, and Doc Redman. And then Harry Higgs. I looked it up. Top 20. He's plus 700.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah. So
top 20 plus 700. Very nice. Well, while we're there, I might as well just look up Henrik Norlander just for the fun of it because he's probably going to be over 1,000 top 20. Yeah, 1,200.
Wow.
You could bet Justin Thomas to win this week, or you could bet Henrik Norlander to come top 20. If you're looking to be a little safe,
both haven't happened in 13 months.
Yeah, or you could bet Scotty Scheffler. You could bet under 10-1, or you could take Henrik Norlander top 30 plus 650. So
wow, that's pretty crazy.
Wow, just some thoughts. All right, next week's a big one, boys. Let's stay hot and run into PGA on a heater. So we'll talk to you guys next week.